Um, with everything that's been going on, we do think that it would be a great opportunity for everybody to practice some mindfulness this afternoon. So doing a little bit of an introduction to mindfulness. Here to present, wanted to introduce Nikki Goldman-Stroh. She is one of our new registered psychotherapists. She has over 15 years of counseling experience with children, adolescents, and adults. And she's a strong believer in using mindfulness and meditation with her clients. And to give you a little bit of background, she has specialty training in CBT counseling skills, and both art and play therapy. Hi, Nikki. How are you?
I have to unmute. There we go. Hi.
And joining Nikki today in our presentation will be Dr. Anjori Pasricha. Hi, Anjori.
Sorry, one second. Can you hear me now? Great.
We're all good.
Good afternoon. We're all in business. Okay.
Yeah, everyone I feel like had to update their Zoom, so we're all kind of
yes.
So without further ado, Nikki, I'll let you take it away.
Okay, great. So we're going to be talking about mindfulness today. And so there's a couple exercises I'm going to introduce, as well as going over some things that you can try at home or wherever. I assume you're all at home, actually. So this is the agenda for today. We're going to talk about mindfulness, mindful breathing. I'll explain what the mind doors is when we get there. We'll try mindful exercise. Then we on the panel are going to demonstrate this 5 senses exercise, which you can use at home, and then just a little bit about meditation at the end. Okay, so this is just the definition of what mindfulness is. And so you can see it says the quality or state of being conscious or aware of something. And the mental state achieved by focusing one's awareness on the present moment while calmly acknowledging, accepting one's feelings, thoughts, and bodily sensations. And it says it's used as a therapeutic technique. And so really what it is, and it's often gets confused with meditation because they go hand in hand, but mindfulness separately is about becoming mindful of the moment that you're in. And so often we tend to think either 10 steps ahead or we're thinking 10 steps behind. And with mindfulness, what we're trying to do is bring ourselves into the present and be right here, right now. So a good way to check in with yourself when you start to, maybe you're starting to feel anxious or something, is to connect to the breath. I'm sure you've all heard about this before. And so what we're looking for is to connect to the breath so that you get to the point where you're observing that pause in between the inhale and the exhale, where we're actually not moving at all. And so we can all try this together. So we're going to take a big deep breath in through our nose, and we're going to hold it for 3 seconds. And we're going to take the breath for 3 seconds, and then we're going to hold it for 2 seconds. And then we're going to exhale for 4. And so what we're trying to do is notice where the pause is. And this is a really good technique that's used in meditation, but can be done at any point. In the middle of the day, if you're feeling really anxious, you can try connecting to the breath by doing this exercise. So if you all want to try, you're going to breathe. I'll count you out. So you're going to take a deep inhale through your nostrils. 1, 2, 3. And then you're holding 1, 2. And then a long exhale, 2, 3, 4. And you're just going to repeat that over and over again. And what that does is really calm down your nervous system. It can, I don't know if Dr. Anjori wants to speak to what focusing on our breath can do for us.
Yeah, so there are a few different changes that occur kind of physiologically when we are going through a stressful period or an anxiety episode. One of the major changes that actually happens is, being in a stressful period or a stressful moment revs up your sympathetic nervous system response, which is kind of responsible for mounting your fight and flight response. This is mediated by our body producing certain hormones, including cortisol, epinephrine, norepinephrine. And what mindfulness can do, and mindfulness-based stress reduction can do, is actually reduces your level of those stress hormones overall. there are a few other interesting changes that also occur as a result of mindfulness or engaging in mindfulness-based stress reduction in the long term at the cellular level as well. And there were a couple of interesting kind of studies that I came across in preparation for our session today. One that showed that mindfulness can actually increase areas of our brain that are responsible for learning and memory. So this is a part of the brain like the hippocampus, and it actually reduces brain cell volume in other areas of the brain like the amygdala, which is responsible for fear, anxiety, and mounting that stress response. Additionally, the mindfulness can also reduce activity in a part of our brains that's called the default mode network. So this is also called the DMN, and what the default mode network does is it's responsible for mind wandering. So you may have noticed sort of in anxious moments, in stressful periods, our stressful periods are often correlated with moments where our mind is all over the place. It's racing, as I've had patients kind of describe it. And so what mindfulness can do is actually reduce activity in that part of the brain that causes your mind to wander or race. So lots of different benefits physiologically and cellular at the cellular level as well.
Okay, so this is an exercise I do a lot with my clients in the early sessions, because, you know, we go through life really on automatic pilot, and what we tend to do is we have about 70 to 80,000 thoughts in a day. So we just, and often a lot of them are the same, right? You cycle through the same thoughts over and over again, and you get distracted by something. You know, you're thinking about work, and then all of a sudden you're thinking, what am I going to have for dinner? And then you go back to the work because you never really finish it properly. And so what I like to do with my clients is work in terms of metaphors. So when they're starting to try meditation, we suggest that they try this technique called mind doors, where you basically are imagining your brain as though it's a newspaper, right? And so you'd have the headline, so the thoughts you think about a lot. And what I see most common in my practice is work is primarily the number one door. And then we usually have social, family, you know, if you have significant other, your kids, whatever you think about. So those are the headlines on the doors. And then when we do this activity in a session, we write it, and we draw the doors, and then inside the doors, we write the bullet points under each heading. And what we're doing here is creating awareness around what we actually think about, because most of us really have no idea. We've never, you know, deconstructed our brain in this way. And the idea behind this exercise is when you start to meditate, you imagine you're sitting in this room, and if you open one of the doors, let's say you go down the rabbit hole of the work door, you can imagine yourself, you create the awareness, you stop, you say, oh, there, I'm thinking about work. I'm going to close that door, and you connect back to your breath. So it's just a way to come back to your breath and to be aware of what's happening inside your brain. And also, once you've created these doors and you have the image visually, when you start to, wander down one of the tracks, right before bed, you can also use the same kind of idea of closing the door. I'm not going to think about that right now. So that's the exercise behind the mind door, which obviously we can't get into in this kind of format, but it is a really good one to, just to see what's happening inside our brain.
And it's good because it gives you a real good visual of literally shutting the door.
There's lots of like when you start meditation in some of those guided ones, there's lots of metaphors used, like you watch your thoughts floating down the river, or you imagine them in balloons and you're popping them. But what I like about the doors is it's more organized because it groups your thought patterns together more. Okay, so then we're talking about these mindful exercises. So again, this is just bringing mindfulness into your everyday, and this is not in terms of when you're meditating. And these exercises you can all try. And so eating with awareness refers to the fact that most of us eat on autopilot, or we eat while we're scrolling on our phone or while we're watching TV. And very few of us actually aren't doing two things at once when we're eating, right? So I highly recommend trying one meal a day, or, trying once, a snack even, where you're eating alone, so not with someone else, where you pay attention to what you're eating. You're not doing anything else, but, you're taking each bite, you're looking at the texture, you're thinking about the taste. When I was introduced to this activity, we did it with a raisin. one raisin and it took us 20 minutes to eat one raisin because we felt it in our hands and we smelt it. And I don't like raisins, but during this activity, I actually did like them because I'd never really paid attention to, they can be quite good and juicy and yummy. And so this kind of creates awareness around when we're eating. And the other thing about doing this exercise is you may find you are actually full at the end of the meal as opposed to then continuing to graze because you've paid attention to your body and when your stomach has alerted you that you really don't need any more food. And that the one thing at a time is the same thing. So I'm so guilty of brushing my teeth and scrolling on my phone. And so I try and like make a conscious effort of not doing two things at once whenever I can. I often, I'm making dinner, I'm unloading the dishwasher, I'm doing too many things at once. And really you can't do anything properly when you're doing more than one thing at one time. So the one thing at a time is I suggest picking one mundane task, like folding the laundry or emptying the dishwasher, but try just doing that and nothing else at the same time. And that is creating mindfulness because you're being present in the moment that you're in right now. And that's the same thing around the slow down, right? Just try and doing one thing at one time. And then the watching the mind is what we just talked about in terms of the doors. So, once you've done that exercise of grouping your thoughts in behind those doors, then you can kind of create that awareness when to say, oh, I just thought about work for, 5 minutes or whatever it was, or I was thinking about COVID. COVID's a new door that showed up in some of my clients' sessions lately, but also okay, right? Like we go down these holes, but it's about creating the awareness and stopping ourselves in that moment. And then the mindful walking is with intention that you go for a walk without, earbuds, without a podcast, without your phone, well, with your phone for safety, but not on your phone. And what I suggest to my clients when they try this one is to try narrating your surroundings to yourself. So that's like, oh, and you probably will feel a bit silly doing it the first few times, but you're just creating that mindfulness for yourself. So, you're going for the walk. Oh, I just heard a bird. There's a blue car, whatever it is. And I did read recently somewhere that once we start to pay more attention to what's around us, the colors and the noises are brighter and louder. So that is quite interesting because usually most of us walk with our head down. Okay, so we're going to try this little exercise. Now, this is a great exercise to do when you are feeling super anxious and you can't stop those thoughts from spinning. And you can do this anywhere. So we're just going to try now. We're going to try with Jocelyn and Jory, and we're going to take turns. And so also it doesn't matter if you can't remember the order and you can't remember the things that, the numbers, you can do, we all know what our 5 senses are. So you're just applying your 5 senses to this exercise. So Jocelyn, we're going to start you off with 5 things you can see.
Okay, so there's an orange tree in front of me, a water bottle.
Yep.
Cell phone, bag, sweater. Oh my God. Okay, sorry, was that 4?
I know, I forgot to count. One more?
I think that's 4, and then hand lotion.
Okay,
So
great.
that's 5. Those are the 5 things I see. Yeah.
Okay, and then so, Jory, what are 4 things you can hear?
Okay, I can hear the traffic in the distance. I can hear my air conditioning, which I'm sure you guys can't hear, but I can hear it. I can hear my husband in the other room. And there's a forest. Hear you lovely ladies.
Oh, right. I thought you said a forest. I was like,
No.
Oh, wow. Where are you?
Yeah, yeah, I know. Okay, so already we've like grounded ourselves, we've distracted ourselves. There is this idea, originally in psychology around let's talk about how we're feeling and all our feelings, but what can also be helpful for us is to distract ourselves from our thoughts in an intended and healthy way, right? I'm not telling you like forget about your thoughts and go have a bottle of wine, but there is a difference between setting it with intention, and sometimes your thoughts are so overwhelming and you're not going to get out of that cycle that you're in. So stopping and trying an exercise like this just to break your train of thought is really helpful. So then 3 things you can touch is literally like, Jocelyn, you're going to feel different. You're looking for texture here, right? So,
and do I need to actually like touch them?
Well, it does help.
Ideal. Yeah. Okay.
Ideally.
So, I feel the coolness from my water bottle.
Okay.
The softness of the leather from a bag strap. And the smoothness of my computer.
Okay, perfect. So if
Yeah.
you're lying in bed right before bed and your head starts racing, you can do this in bed. I mean, it's like touching your pajamas and your sheet and your skin, right? All of these things have different texture. Okay, and then 2 things you can smell. So
It's my
that's,
turn.
yeah.
Oh, I can smell our pasta lunch,
Okay.
slightly. I'm like, what else can I
You can smell
smell?
your hair. You can smell your
Oh,
shirt.
I can. That's true. That's true. I can smell my hair, shampooed.
Good. Glad you're here. Okay, and then one thing you can taste. So Jocelyn, that literally you swallow. What's the last thing you ate? Coffee, water,
Corn.
whatever. Corn? Corn.
Good.
We learned so much about you guys
Yeah.
today. Okay, so I like to refer to that as a grounding exercise, right? So when you're lost, you're overwhelmed, try this to bring yourself down a little bit from some of that.
And so, Nikki, sorry, did you say that it had to be in this order, or in terms of it's just as long as it's within the 5 senses,
Yeah,
then
I
that's
mean,
completely okay?
it does not have to be in this order. If you forget what it is, you do remember what your 5 senses are. So just work down, right? It is also, though, you'll find it's much easier to see 5 things than to smell 5 things, right?
Right.
So, or taste 5 things.
Or taste 5 things, yeah.
Okay. And then I don't know if, Andrew, if you want to speak to what meditation can do for us before I start this.
So I mean, I talked a little bit about it already in terms of the benefits of it on, again, kind of reducing the intensity of that sympathetic nervous system response, and reducing the intensity of that flight and flight response, which we tend to, which tends to get revved up when we are in moments of stress or anxiety, and then switching over more to the parasympathetic nervous system response, which is more involved in rest, relaxation, promoting digestion, and those bodily activities. So it just switches over the response to more the parasympathetic nervous system. And then I think I spoke a little bit already about some of the changes that are taking place at the cellular level as well, in terms of kind of reducing your level of anxiety.
Okay. So what I always tell my clients is that this isn't something that works overnight. Okay. So if you meditate every day for 5 minutes, and usually I see my clients on a weekly basis and they come back and say, I don't feel any different. Like, it doesn't happen that quickly, right? But with time, as we just heard, like, there is scientific research that backs up the fact that it does have real effects on your brain and how it works. And I've been meditating myself for numerous amount of years, and for me, the biggest difference is I've learned to respond to a situation instead of react. And that can be really key in eliminating arguments with my spouse, or, I mean, not always, it's not foolproof, but, in even how I respond to my children and anything, it's just, I respond instead of react. And often our reactions are not the things we're looking for, especially when heated or angry. So what I suggest in terms of introducing yourself to meditation, there's tons of apps out there. Personally, I'm a big fan of the Calm app, but I've heard lots about Headspace, and there's numerous apps. And if you're not into the apps, you can even use YouTube you can just search 5-minute guided meditations. And that's what I suggest with starting, 5 minutes. And this also, I get this a lot from my clients where they say, well, I can't turn off my brain. That is not the idea behind meditation. You are not meant to turn off your brain. If we go back to the beginning when we talked about how many thoughts we're having in a day, how can you turn that off, right? I mean, even when you're sleeping, it's still going. Otherwise, we wouldn't dream. So what you're meant to do with practice in meditation is learn to observe your thoughts instead of actively participate in them. And what happens to us when we get anxious or any of those uncomfortable feelings is we're actively participating in what our thoughts are. We believe because we have the thought that it's true. So we learn to observe our thoughts, back to the mind doors, right? We learn to say, oh, I'm thinking about this, or I'm thinking about that. And then the most important piece there in the meditation is about, focusing on your breath and how to find your breath in the moment and that pause in between. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. All right. And so in terms of, meditation, I know that for me, it actually took quite a while to even understand understand sort of the premise of it. When I first started it, it probably took me a couple months, I would say, before I even really started to be able to focus strictly on my breath and not have the mind's race. So for everybody that's new to it, don't be discouraged. And I would say that even with 3 months, that's with me having practice in, competitive sport and all of that as well. So don't be discouraged is probably my biggest line item with stuff like that.
I actually want to echo what
Yeah.
Nikki said as well, but I really like the Calm app as well. I'm relatively newer to mindfulness meditation, and I still struggle to practice for like long periods of time. And it's great because they have like a lot of mindfulness meditation courses that you can take that start at like 3 minutes to start, okay, and then kind of increase from there. So if you're new to meditation and mindfulness, that's definitely something to check out.
Yeah, and also, like, I mean, even I'm a couple years, at least 3 or 4 years in, and sometimes I sit down to meditate and I cannot turn off my brain. And so when that happens, like, and again, not turn off my brain, but I can't quiet my mind. And when that happens, I just observe it. I say, well, today's meditation was all about me thinking about what I had for lunch, and that's just all there is to it, right? I mean, obviously I don't spend 10 minutes thinking about my lunch, but like sometimes you just can't turn it off, and you have to just learn to observe that. And that would be really beneficial in terms of, when you're anxious, you could actually observe that you're anxious as opposed to feeling the anxiety.
For sure. All right, so that's it for the present today. We do have the chat function and the Q&A for those of you attending that have any questions. But in the meantime, as you guys are getting ready to type it up, I'll let you know that Nikki is available for virtual appointments. You can book with her online. You can get set with, a complimentary meet and greet with her first if you wanted to just make sure that your styles do mesh well. And Dr. Njori is also available for telemedicine. So if there's any questions that anybody have, we, are here for you from both sides. So feel free to reach out. You can give us a call, and you can find that on our website, or you can email us at appointments@integra.com. So it doesn't look like there's any questions from anybody. I spoke too soon. Nope, it was just a thank you. Hold on, sorry, there might be one. Okay, actually, here's one. How can I train my mind to be still? I feel like it's constantly active a lot of the time.
Right. So that kind of speaks to what we were just talking about earlier. You can't really train your mind to be still. What you can do is train yourself to observe your thoughts. I really feel like the metaphor is helpful, has been for me. I like to think in images. And so, if you think about when you go and see a play, right? Well, not that we can do that at the moment, but there is, the actor on the stage and then the audience. And what you want to become is the audience to your brain instead of the active participant in your thoughts. And so that only becomes possible with practice. And for sure, with, once you get into this and start practicing, you will notice that you can observe your thoughts. I have a client who has a lot of intrusive thoughts, and she's been meditating for about 2 years now. And she says that she is able to catch herself sometimes, not always, and say like, oh, I just had a series of intrusive thoughts. And that makes such a difference than believing that her intrusive thoughts are real.
And I think the biggest thing too is just to be kind to yourself with this, right?
Right. Well, that's a huge thing. So there's a lot of stuff out there on self-compassion, and that's like something I talk a lot about in my sessions with my clients in terms of, look, we're really the worst friend to ourselves, right? Like, you can think about this in terms of if you had, a stressful situation at work happened to you, you tend to be really critical and hard on yourself. Whereas if your friend called you with the exact same situation, the things you would tell your friend is not the stuff you tell to yourself. So what we try and learn is how to be self-compassionate. And in turn, that teaches us to be more compassionate to others, more understanding. And so, sorry, I just got distracted by that question. So see, my mind is all over the place. So it just, it takes time to practice, right? You have to put the time aside. Attention span training. I'm not sure if I'm totally familiar. Have you heard? And Jory, have you heard about
Which question?
the
Sorry,
question says, is it similar
In
to
the
attention
Q&A,
span
is it
training?
similar to attention span training? That I'm not familiar with.
I'm not
attention
familiar
span.
with that either.
Me either. I feel like that maybe that my guess is something to do with, like ADD or ADHD, having an ability to focus. And I would say no, because that you're trying to learn to focus, whereas this is you're trying to learn to observe. So it's two different techniques. If I knew more though about attention spanning, I may be able to speak more to that.
All right, and we have another question here. A couple more. How to manage the queasy and shakiness in your stomach while meditation refocus the panic feeling in your belly?
That's a great question. So again, practice. Yes, but it's kind of a two-part answer in terms of what you learn to do is observe that you have that feeling in your belly, and then you can separate yourself. So, I did this course, Mindful-Based Stress Reduction, which is really good for people who experience pain, and it teaches you to separate from your pain. Your pain is your pain. Your pain is not you, right? So I think it kind of goes hand in hand with I'm assuming that the panic feeling in your belly is related. I mean, it says panic, so related to anxiety. And thus, if you're learning to observe that, then just naturally you will reduce those feelings of anxiety.
And it's again kind of reducing that stress response that we were talking about before as well, and the reduction in those like stress hormones as well, which meditation can be helpful with.
Right. Very good. Okay. And then there's a preferred position. So that's a great question. And I think it depends on which teacher you ask. So most teachers will tell you you should sit up. The thing about lying down is you can fall asleep, and there's nothing wrong with falling asleep if that's what your body needs, but then you're not exactly learning those because you're sleeping, those techniques of observing your thoughts. So sitting upright, they also do suggest that your legs are lower than your body, which is why a lot of people sit on a pillow or a bench. So if you're new to it, I suggest sticking to a chair because you're in the right position that way. If you have back problems, you can also try sitting on like a pillow against a wall. I like to use the wall as support because it also keeps me kind of grounded and reminds me that I'm sitting, right? Because I have something to lean on. But as you get better, you may find different positions. And then also something we didn't talk about, but is a form of meditation, are body scans. And so that's usually done lying down. And you can also just like Google or YouTube body scans and try those out and see if you like them. Most of the time for me, when I ever do a body scan, because I'm lying down, I usually don't make it to the end awake, but that's okay. That's what my body needs.
I'm guilty as charged as well.
Yeah, right. And they're also like quiet and soothing. And the next thing you're like, what time is it? So if you do have trouble sleeping, I do recommend the body scan as a way to help you fall asleep, can be beneficial. And then is there a specific time that's better for practicing meditation? That's totally your call. Personally, I like to start my day off with it. I built it into my workout so that if I work out, I'm going to meditate for sure. But some people prefer in the evening, whatever works for you. I suggest starting with 5 minutes and working your way up to longer times. And so, even at lunchtime would be good if you've got a really busy day to take that break.
For sure. All right. So I think that's it for the questions. Again, like I said, Nikki is available for virtual appointments, and Dr. Njori is available for telemedicine. We do actually have our clinic open for most services for those of you, if you don't know yet. So massage, chiro, physiotherapy, as well as did I say massage? I did say massage. We are back full swing in the clinic. Sorry, not full swing. We are working on reduced availability. We are practicing safe social distancing. To get more information about the protocols that we've done, you can just visit our website to know how the extra measures that we've taken to make sure everybody's safety is kept top of mind. And that's a wrap for us today. Hope everybody enjoyed our little meditation afternoon. All right, bye.
That's great. Thanks, guys. Bye.